Goye Ganawaginono, and welcome to another episode of Our Town. Each week we're going to be looking at issues that are ongoing here in Kahnawake. And one of the biggest issues that have been going on in recent times is the Kahnawake education system and some of the information that is ongoing here in the community, the Kahnawake Combined School Committee, the Mohawk Council, elections surrounding the Kahnawake Combined School Committee, correspondence between the two, and so on and so forth. So today we're going to be sitting down with both the Kahnawake Combined School Committee and the Mohawk Council of Kahnawake to try to get some more information on what's going on and where do we go from here as a community in terms of education. So that's one of the stories I'm going to be working on today, and I'm on my way. So welcome to the program, Our Town, of course. This is going to be a very interesting program, so we hope to bring a lot of the issues that are going on within the education system to light. So just very quickly, if we can just introduce ourselves and say what your role is and functions on the Combined School Committee.
Okay, I am Cheryl Zachary, and I hold a general seat on the Combined School Committee. And as of November 9th, 2012, have taken on the role of Vice Chair on the committee.
Okay.
Wayne Delormier Jr., also a general seat, and I've taken on the role as Treasurer for the Combined School Committee.
Okay.
My name is Lisa Daifu. I'm the KSS representative, and I've been on the ad hoc committee.
Okay. So what is the difference between the ad hoc and the committee itself?
Within the Constitution, there are stipulations that say when complaints or new issues come to the table, rather than have the whole committee deal with the issue as one, we will set up an ad hoc committee who will, which is made up of 3 members or 4 members, who will get together and do the research and the discussions around whatever the issue might be. They will then bring back any information to the larger committee, and then we will come up with some kind of resolution to the problem.
Okay.
So the role is for them to take it on and then bring it back to the committee.
Okay. Now I understand, and this is one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you guys today, was to get into the election because of recent in news. Of course, there seems to be a breakdown of good communication between the Mohawk Council of Kahnawake and the Combined School Committee. Also, just recently, the Mohawk Council declared the last annual General Assembly election null and void because of some of the issues that had occurred at the election. Now, I know that there has been some media coverage, but Mohawk TV hasn't gotten around to it, but now we are. So would you be able to tell us what happened that led to the Mohawk Council feeling that it was all null and void? Because from what I understand, the Combined School Committee is saying, no, it's fine, we're carrying on as usual.
Leading up to the election, there were several meetings that took place between MCK and the Combined School Committee, during which any rules or procedures were discussed and agreed upon between the two parties. There was a list that I have here that did go out to the community on November 7th, 2012, that I guess laid out the confirmation and election process, also the voting procedures, and any nominations and voting procedures for elections should that happen. When it came time to do the actual General Assembly, as cannot be foreseen, there were several things that came up at that meeting. So the committee as a whole met together to try to deal with the issues as they came up. However, there were no complaints at that point about the procedures or about anything that was happening there. I know once the confirmation vote took place and 2 people were confirmed and 2 were not, there was some discussion around how they would go about carrying out the next election that night, which was in fact on the agenda as well. And I remember sitting there saying, wait a minute, the decision has already been made. We need to carry through with the election. We can't, because it's not pleasing to everybody, we can't make up new rules. The decision was, in the event that people were not confirmed, an election would be held. There would be a call for nominations, which would include anybody who was in the who was at the assembly, and then an election would take place. That's the procedure that happened, and
was both agreed upon by.
and it was agreed upon.
everybody.
It was previously agreed upon before the night of the general election.
Okay.
It was agreed upon. And it was even questioned with MCK, what happens if people are not happy with the elections? And a few of the council members stated, it doesn't matter, I'm sure people aren't happy when we get in at council, but it is what it is, we need to move forward. That's the thought we went forward on. So Trina and Wayne were in fact re-elected, and we moved forward. Shortly thereafter, I believe it was the next day or so, some complaints started to come in about how that went about. And initially we thought, okay, you can never please all of the people all of the time. There are always going to be those people who are unhappy with the turn of events, always. So we said, we'll go forward. We did look at those complaints that came in. We received 2 of them ourselves, and then we were notified by MCK that they had received some complaints at their office. We met together on November the 14th to look at those complaints and to discuss them as a whole.
Now, when you're saying that you're meeting with Mohawk Council, are you meeting with specific people from within the Mohawk Council, or are you meeting with the entire table?
No, when I say Mohawk Council, I'm referring to Rhonda Kirby and Robert Patton, who are the MCK liaisons with the Combined School Committee.
Okay.
So on November 14th, we met with them to look at the complaints. There was a difference of opinion. However, I have to say everybody took those complaints seriously. There was no complaint that was not taken seriously. However, at that meeting is when the members of MCK began to say that the election should not stand. We discussed several of those issues, and I believe we met for well over 3 hours to talk about this. And there was a lot of frustration. There was a lot of there were contentious issues. There was a lot of questioning about, well, MCK, what about your election? There were also complaints about those, but nobody called a new election for you. And I think we need to look at that. I understand that the Combined School Committee has been under fire for the last year.
But why not just, I mean, and let's just, before we head on to that, there's some things that I'd like to have addressed, definitely, and I know the public is wondering about, is some of the voting process that had happened by allowing, and at this point I think everybody knows that Jessica Deere was a post-secondary student, and then she was allowed to cast a ballot by a member of the Kahnawake Education Center who said, you can vote, number one. Number two, the ballots were later then taken out, and then, well, which one is yours? I know that happened, and then there was also, let's just stop there because we can go on to the other stuff, but let's address it one at a time. So how true is that, and what actually happened?
It's 100% true. Jessica, I don't really want to talk about specific people at all, but now that we've said her name, she did come in. She was given a ballot by one of the employees of the Kahnawake Education Center by accident. And when that accident was basically found out, he then asked her to, she was asked, I believe, what she had voted, and those ballots were, which one is yours? She was asked that. That is absolutely true. I know none of the members had any part in that. We didn't participate in that part. We were in the gym, and to my knowledge, this was happening in the back. So we weren't privy to this until after the fact. What we did learn after is that the person was well aware that they could not vote. And if you look at the confirmation and election procedures process, it's clearly stated in here that she would be unable to vote.
You know, I mean, she was aware that she was unable to vote and went there knowingly, and she had later said in a conversation with myself and another person that, you know, she got carried away in the moment, that she went and she was excited that she was told that she was able to vote, so she did. And I was like, all right, I'm not judging, I'm just saying that, you know, that there's responsibility on both sides, her part and what went down.
Yep.
So if you knew at that point that there was obviously something that was very compromising, and it could be seemed like compromising even in the public, why not just say, all right, we didn't mess up, but the process was messed up, so we will call another election just based on that one thing.
Well, I guess the reason we didn't is because at that time we were told by one of the MCK liaisons that she did not confirm she did not vote for any of the people on the list, so her vote was, I guess, 0. There was nothing to count, so it didn't affect the voting at all. And because we were at a difference of opinion, we sought legal counsel just to get, are we way off here? Like, are we crazy?
Right.
Why is MCK saying this is such a big deal, and we're saying, well, maybe we need to look at this. We can admit there are issues, there have been issues, the Constitution needs to be redone. Things need to happen. We admit that 100%, and we have been saying that for the last year. I think
It's like we've always been trying to move forward, but it just,
right.
there's
Always something. And when we sought legal counsel, we explained the election process. We gave copy of the information. We told the lawyer exactly what happened, and he was of the opinion that there was nothing that had happened that would warrant a brand new election, because it would not have changed anything. So
It wouldn't have changed the results.
It would not have changed
based on
results.
just that one ballot.
Right,
But I think
exactly.
some of the concerns were about security. And if that one ballot could be taken out, then how many could be taken out and changed?
Well,
at that point, that was an issue that was raised. But before we go on, I just have to take a quick commercial break. I know it's important that we get right back into this. Don't go away. We're going to be right back after this quick break. Okay, welcome back to the program. You're watching Our Town, and today we are discussing the issues surrounding the combined school committee here in Kahnawake, and of course that includes the Mohawk Council of Kahnawake, and just some of the information that's being portrayed to the community. Of course, everybody says that they want to work together and get this issue settled, solved, and moved forward, but right now it seems like it's stagnant, it's stuck, because both sides are, you know, seem to be stuck in this circle or this battle, if you will, of he said, she said. So we're going to try and get to some of the bottom of that today. And we're discussing, before we went to break, we were discussing the elections and how the Mohawk Council recently said they're null and void. So we're going to get back into that. Before the break, we were talking about the ballots and how, you know, there was an issue with the security of the ballots. What is your comment on that?
I know there's an idea out there that the combined school committee was very much involved in looking at the ballots and touching the ballots and doing all of that, when in fact that was nowhere near the truth. The combined school committee was not even involved in looking at the ballots. Every single school that was involved had color-coded ballots that were signed by the secretary or whomever was giving out those ballots to the public. When the contentious issue came up regarding Jessica's vote, what they did is whatever color code they were for that particular vote, they pulled the two that had the 0 people on it and asked which one of these are yours. My understanding is she told them which one was hers, and that was the end of it.
And they were able to verify that because Chris LeClaire had signed her ballot.
That's right.
So they were able to match
That's right.
the signature.
That's right.
So then everything goes back to ballot counting at this point,
Mm-hmm.
and who were the people that were counting the ballots, and did you have an observer there that didn't feel that there was an issue at the time? Or?
We did have an observer there, and Greg Horn was an independent observer. He had agreed to take on the role of just making sure that everything was legit, to make sure that people were doing what they needed to do, and to be a general witness for the ballot counting and the ballot box, to
Okay.
make sure that everything was on the up and up. He did that. He was the one who came out and made the announcements as to who was confirmed, not confirmed, elected, not elected. That
So
was
he
his
was
role.
overseeing things.
Yes.
At that point, did he feel that there was an issue of security that was relayed to anybody on the?
Not to my
The
understanding. No, he was not concerned about that.
Okay. Okay, so let's just leave that for right now. Did at that point, Rhonda Kirby was there, from what I understand,
Yes.
on
Yes.
behalf of Mohawk Council.
Yes.
Did she feel it was an issue at that time?
No.
Was she
I-
aware of it, or?
You know what? I really can't answer whether or not she was aware of it that night. There were so many people there and so much going on that I don't know who knew what at what particular time.
Okay.
I know that that night there were no complaints. Nothing came forward. I have the minutes from the AGA. Nothing was brought forward. I just know that after the fact, in the days
that
after the
followed,
meeting,
yeah.
then complaints started coming in. So I can't confirm when somebody knew something or didn't.
Okay. There was also an issue that's come out into the community now of a parent that was refused voting in the process and who has now launched a complaint with Human Rights because she felt that it was, or they felt, if you will, that it was a racism issue and that she was treated unfairly. How is that possible at this point? What happened, if you can elaborate on the issue without revealing the person's name, obviously, due to confidentiality issues? How did that happen? And what is the reaction by the Combined School Committee knowing that there's this issue or this complaint that's been launched?
Well, we were told by MCK liaison Rhonda Kirby that this complaint had in fact been filed. I can speak personally that I was a little surprised, only because it's a combined school committee. We're a volunteer board. We follow the Constitution, and the Constitution follows the membership law of the Mohawk Council of Kahnawake. So
No, but what happened? The parent went to vote and they weren't able to vote. And
they weren't
Why?
able to vote because they didn't fall under the yeah, see,
Kahnawake
this is-
education system, like we had the nominal roles, like and each school had their thing, and every parent was checked off who was eligible to vote.
But their child attends school in Kahnawake.
See, I don't know who it is even, so I can't even tell you what happened, where, how, what. I don't
But
know.
then how were you able to say that? I'm just assuming at this point that the parent who filed a letter of complaint says that they weren't allowed to vote in the election.
There are some people who weren't allowed to vote.
Okay, so as a whole, was it because of a membership issue?
Yes, it was because of a membership issue and because of the laws in the Constitution that are currently in place. And those were the laws that were stipulated within this confirmation and elections procedure.
Okay,
That
so
was sent out to the public in advance so people knew ahead of time who could and who could not vote. And it goes along with this, with the same rules that are in place around who's able to attend Kahnawake schools and who isn't. We didn't, as the Combined School Committee, we didn't make up these laws.
So just for clarity, if a parent of any child within the Kahnawake education system that is funded by the Kahnawake education system and is on the Kahnawake Mohawk registry, not INAC, you're allowed to vote in the system.
Yes.
If you don't meet any of those criteria, you're not allowed.
That's right.
Who established that policy?
The membership law. The membership law makes that the rule within Kahnawake, and it stands for several things within the community that are run by MCK, if you want to look at water and sewer and housing and all of that. And it filters down to the school system as well. Any child who is on the Mohawk registry is eligible to receive benefits or the schooling within Kahnawake. Those who are funded elsewhere or through other points like INAC or whatever are not. They usually go to school off reserve or whatever. We don't.
We don't have the INAC list. In other words, we don't know who's on the INAC list. All we know is who is not on the KEC list. And they're not on the KEC list, so they weren't eligible to vote.
So is that, was that plain and simple? Like, was that explained to the parent that evening? I mean, you know, I don't know if I could stretch it here, but were there many individuals that were refused voting that night, or were there only one or two cases?
There were a couple of people
Okay.
who could not. And basically, what went on is that when you walked into the building, there were tables set up, and Godinnuha, Cattery, Survival School, and the registrar were all stationed there. So when you went up to them, if your name was on the list, because you were on their nominal roll, you were given a ballot to vote. And
Okay,
your
so it
name took
wasn't
up-
the combined school committee that was looking at the list and
No.
saying, "Oh,
No.
we don't see
No.
you." There was actually a registrar there from within the Mohawk Council of Kahnawake
No,
system.
no. The registrar who was there was Anne Marie Sky, because she's the registrar at the
For the
Kahnawake
education center, okay.
and then each of the secretaries or administrative assistants for each of the schools did their own. As
Okay.
members of the combined school committee, we never ever see the nominal rolls. We cannot tell you who is on the Mohawk registry, who is a C31 or a C3. We have no idea whatsoever.
Okay, so it's at arm's length from.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So now, within the days following, I know we have to take a quick commercial break, but I'm going to try and just ask this before we go to the break. Within the days following, once the Mohawk Council had some of these issues, and they're going to be on later in the show, and they're going to answer some of these questions too. Once it was found that there was some issues with the election, how come the combined school committee just didn't say, you know what, all right, fine. Let's call another election. If you want to say it's null and void and there's all these issues, and we can agree that there were some things that may have not gone as smoothly as we have liked, we'll call another election then, no big deal.
I guess it was more about the principle and what we have been going through as a committee over the last year, and the idea of moving 2 steps forward, 10 steps back. And it's almost as though no matter what we do as a committee, somebody will find something to complain about. And I guess I can speak for the committee in saying that, you know, we are all of the same mind in terms of our children's education and wanting to move forward. And because there were so many issues within the education center that are important and need attention, that's where we're at. We want to focus on moving forward. So it's not let's move forward and blow everybody off. It's let's move forward and make some positive changes here. For the last year, we have all been complaining about this constitution. And we are well aware that it doesn't fit our needs of the community or of the parents or of the children. We need it changed. But until we have the chance to do that, it's going to remain the same. And hopefully in a year, we're not still talking about the issues in the constitution. Hopefully by then we will have moved forward.
Okay. Thank you. We're going to come right back after this quick break. Don't go away. You're watching Our Town. And welcome back. You're watching Our Town. We're still in studio today with some members of the Combined School Committee here in Kahnawake and talking about some very contentious issues right now in education in Kahnawake. Before we left for break, we were discussing the election and some of the issues that have apparently been launched to Human Rights Canada. Is the Combined School Committee taking those complaints seriously?
Definitely. We're not blowing anything off. Everything is being taken seriously. All the complaints that we received, we have formed the ad hoc committee, and they are being dealt with accordingly. I mean, it's not like we've just said, we don't want anything to do with this, and it doesn't mean anything to us. It does mean something to us. And we are dealing with it in a professional manner, the way the school committee should.
And the ad hoc committee consists of myself, Brian Deere, and Trina Sky, and we've addressed the complaints, and we're just waiting for approval, and they should be delivered shortly.
Okay. Now, as somebody who's involved in education, and at this level, of course, have you actually read the MCED?
Yeah.
Okay. Have you all been
Yes.
Yes.
read it and it's all been familiarized and
Yeah.
okay? Because I know there was some concerns from the Mohawk Council saying, well, I don't know if they've all even read the MCED.
I have the copy on my phone so I can refer back to it whenever I need to.
Okay. What would you say, in your opinion, seems to be the biggest issue here right now? Is it the election? Is it the fact that Mohawk Council and the combined school committee just can't work together because of politics? Is it because what is there so much going on in the community right now, so much rumors and innuendo? Nobody is really sure. What would you say, in your opinion, is the biggest issue right now?
In my personal opinion, I think it all stems from the
Ending of probation.
the ending of the probation of the former director of education. There was a lot of feelings hurt, and things didn't go the way they should have. I mean, at one point, when this happened, there was a meeting supposed to take place with the combined school committee and the administration of all the schools, which never took place. It was more of an ambush against the combined, and that meeting that was supposed to take place never did. And I think if that meeting did take place, that there wouldn't be so many hard feelings. I think there would have been a lot more understanding as to why things happened the way they happened. That's just my opinion. I do believe that there were a lot of feelings hurt, but the job still had to get done.
Now, at this point, after all the, we fast forward now 6 months in, and we're into the summer months, and then right before the end of the summer, the Mohawk Council says, well, the combined school committee is done for now, and then there was this eruption in social politics, if you will. So we move forward through that, and we think, as a community, and I'm sure as the combined school committee members, you think, okay, we've settled on this interim agreement and this MCED, and we're going to work within this 30-day period and launch this we're going to launch this independent investigation and so on and so forth. And then this election happens, and now here we are again with this turmoil. I think my question, and a lot of the question on many community members' minds, is how can anything get solved if there's this constant back and forth? And that brings us to this battle of he said, she said through emails that have been leaked to the local media, along with a list of the Education Center employees who were to be reprimanded and things like that. Now, it seems like it's just another notch, if you will, on the belt of issues that are now in the way of solving this issue. So, in your opinion, what happened at that point? How did we get here? Because now there's all this emails, and there's people are being unprofessional, and we can't work together, and what say you?
I think for me, it's my personal opinion that all of this started way back when, like Wayne had said, and I really don't want to get back into that. And I think the last place we all want to be is he said this and she said that, and I think we did this and we did that. No, I think the bottom line is there's an education system that needs to be the priority. There are children that we need to focus on, and we need to move forward. A whole year has passed since the beginning of this, and at times it feels like we haven't moved forward. I know as a committee, we continue to meet. We've had our regular scheduled board meetings. The most recent one being last Monday. We did meet. We're working on requests that have come through to our board, and at the same time, we're trying to deal with some of these negative issues that are coming forth to us. I think for me, the biggest issue is the way that some of these issues are being sensationalized. And it's taking a little bit.
Well, you have a member of the Mohawk Council of Kahnawake, which is Chief Rhonda Kirby, who has publicly stated in an interview with one of the local media that she's at her wit's end, that yous are, you people are impossible to work with, almost.
See,
How does that affect the relationship, and how did it get to that point?
See, I mean, I think for me, education is not a political issue. And once MCK got involved, it became more of a political issue. And I think we have our beliefs as to what needs to happen, and they have theirs. I know if you look through the emails, there have been a lot of instances where people are being put in their places and being seemingly threatened about, well, then you won't have the money, or you won't have this, or you won't have that. Do as I say, or, and those kinds of things are often reacted to. And I have to admit, I've read the emails because I've been privy to them, and some of them absolutely contain a lot of frustration. One of the problems I have with email, though, is that a lot can be misconstrued in a written document.
But that's one of my questions, is why, if this is such an important issue, why are all of these things being discussed over email, and why not in a meeting? This doesn't make sense.
That I can't answer, except that on a day-to-day basis, people need answers and people need to move on certain things.
What about even a phone call? Because like you said, there can be a lot of misconstrued issues in tone of voice, and as you can see it getting further and further and further. Why not just say, we need to meet and discuss these things, or let's pick up the phone and just talk, voice to voice even?
Well, I mean, that has happened. It's not as though those things haven't happened as well.
Okay.
There have been countless meetings, and I know for a lot of us, our families have suffered. We're a volunteer board. I know for me, when I go to meetings, my kids say, "Oh, Mommy, again? Why are you going to another meeting?"
I'm sure it's very stressful.
It's very stressful, and not one of us gets paid to do this. We don't have somebody who's there to do our press releases. We do them until midnight, on the night, which is why I find as a committee, we're often being reactive to things rather than proactive. And one of the things that I guess we wanted to address was that issue in itself. We want to be more proactive and get the information out there. There are things, because we did do an interview with another media source, and there were several things that were clarified during that time that were not in that article, and it was sensationalized to make it look like we don't know what the hell we're doing, when in fact that's untrue. And I really feel for Rhonda and her being able to say that, that, you know what, I'm at my wit's end, I can't deal with it. She's been doing this for the last couple of months. We've been doing it for the last year, and we don't get paid for it. She has a paid position in doing this. I can appreciate where she's coming from, but I think the feelings go both ways, and the last thing we want to do is make it a he said, she said. And that's what we mean when we say, let's move forward. It's not because we don't think what you're saying is important. It's not because we don't want to address things. It's because there's only so long we can deal with, you did this or you said that. No, let's just move forward. The education system needs to have things addressed.
But how can you move forward and have a positive relationship when you do have a member of your own committee writing things like, you are being a bully, you are micromanaging, you are not the Grand Chief. Last I checked, you're not the Grand Chief. Those are some very aggressive emails that have been sent, and I know I've seen them because they've been leaked to Mohawk TV too. And so that's one of my questions, is how can you move forward and have a positive relationship when you do have somebody from your committee writing those things? Is that a reaction to something, or?
I think it is a reaction to the way, like you said, when we do sit at meetings in a person to person, and when the Mohawk Council stated that they wanted to have a new election and declare this one null and void, and it was asked as to why, and what if we don't have another election? Then what's going to happen? Well, it was just stated that if it doesn't go our way, then it's going to be bad for you. You know, we're just going to cut all the funding, and it's very.
Was that threatened? And so, not so many words.
And not
It's
so-
been alluded to several
It's been
times.
alluded to several times. It's
Okay.
our way or the highway, you know? And I know they've stated that they are in charge. The council is in charge. They've stated on the radio show, they stated that we're in charge, and that's all. But according to the community and the parents are in charge of the education. It's not the MCK. And the parents put us in place to ensure that this happens.
And you know what? It's interesting that you say that, Wayne, because I did have the opportunity to sit in on a council meeting just this week, and Chief Carl Horn raised a good point. He said, you know, I've been here for how many terms, and education has never been an issue at this table. It's never gotten to this point. Why has it?
Why now? That's where I'm going back to the question where it all stems back to what happened, what we did with the former interim director. It's personal, I believe.
Okay, we're going to take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to deal with a few more things. I understand that this is not an easy issue, so I thank you for being so honest. And also, we can't fit everything in an hour, but we're going to try and touch on some very important matters when we get back, so don't go away. We'll be right back after this quick break. Okay, and welcome back to the program. You're watching Our Town, and of course, we're talking about the Kahnawake education system and what's going on here in the community. If you are in this community, then you are well aware of some of the issues within education. You're right, it has been almost a year, and I'm sure that this issue is very exhausting, but I think a lot of people want to see this just move forward at this point. One of the questions was, again, about the emails and the, you know, we don't want to do the he said, she said. We want to try and stay away from that. But because it's already been made public, I need to ask you, you know, and I know there has been some allegations towards Rhonda that she is, you know, very aggressive, that she is a bully, that she is not the Grand Chief. And I just wanted to try and clarify why those statements were made.
I think those statements were made as a reaction to bigger issues that have been going on, and not that it condones saying things like that in an email. However, it's important to know in the beginning the Grand Chief had a lot to say about education, and because we knew that Rhonda could not be available at the meeting after the November 14th meeting where we talked about the complaints. We knew that the table would be having a discussion with the Grand Chief regarding the complaints at the AGA. And Rhonda shared with us that she would be out on personal business, let's say. Okay. So we knew she was not going to be there. And then afterwards we heard that they went and voted the elections null and void. So I do know for a fact that one of the members contacted the Grand Chief to ask exactly how was this vote done, and who
At
was
the
there
table.
at the table. How was it done at the table, and who voted, and all of that. And this email was written in November. There was no response until December 5th. So there was some frustration, and the only response was that I'll ask Rhonda to review it. And I know that Tina at that point was saying, I'm not asking Rhonda. Rhonda wasn't even there. I'm asking you as the Grand Chief to bring that information to me. I want to know from you exactly how all of this happened. So, I mean, without making excuses, that's where the frustration came out of. Answer my question and give me the information I need.
Well, I mean, I'm not judging any of you guys. I think really what you've been doing is very hard. And people have to understand that they're just humans. You know, we all have emotions, we all get frustrated, we all overreact or underreact. It depends on the issue. I'm not in your shoes. I don't know what's been going on. I'm just a regular community member who's also a reporter and trying to shed some light to what just happened, it just seems like it's ongoing. And we all say, well, we want the best education system, but somebody will say the education system is on the verge of collapsing. Is that true?
No,
No.
it isn't at
It's
all.
a very
No.
big accusation to make, and this is coming from within the Mohawk Council of Kahnawake. This system is about to collapse.
The system is not about to collapse. Financially, we're in a good place. There was a surplus. I think that the director of finance is doing a good job. And I know when the audit went through this year, the education center received a letter saying how great the audit was and that they hadn't seen such a clean audit in years. And he shared with us a copy of that letter. So we are very happy about that. I know in terms of a committee, we are meeting on a regular basis to try and move forward on things. We know that currently we have an interim director of education, and I have to say, I sat with her in a meeting in December at our monthly meeting, and she shared her work plans, and I have to say she's doing a fantastic job.
Which brings me to this next point, and I'm sure you all know it's coming, is that the interim director of education is Robin Delarone.
Yes.
Now, her name came up at a meeting this week too, and somebody was talking about the fact that there has been a list of employees, including her, that were to be reprimanded, and it was labeled a hit list by another media, which that's something that I wouldn't use personally, but just because it's already been put out there. Now, you say that she's doing a fantastic job, and a lot of parents feel that she's beneficial, she's positive. So what happened, and what can you say about this list?
Well, I know that this list exists. I know,
But
because
it's not a hit list.
It's
Or is it a
absolutely
hit list?
No, it's absolutely not a hit list. I think every organization has policies and procedures that need to be followed. When employees take it amongst themselves to go against those policies and their procedures, there are sometimes reprimands that need to be put into place to remind an employee that certain things are unwanted or inappropriate. Those are some of the things, excuse me, that occurred back in the summer of last year that started to happen. So because we were privy to so many of those things as a committee, and because we witnessed those things as a committee, and because we were working so closely with the then interim director of education, as well as the director of finance, who had taken on several more roles, we were all working together to make sure that the education center moved forward. At that time, there were so many, I guess, what we thought were breaches in policy and procedure, that we did come up with a list and what the appropriate forms of action would be. I know that because I wrote the email. I kept the notes and I wrote the email so that I could send it to the interim directors, and then because that's their job to follow up with it, they asked that I do that and that they follow up on it. Why this is being brought up now in December 2012 when it started last year is beyond me.
Is it really perplexing? Because clearly, if Robin's not on, there's no issue. Because and the only reason why we're discussing her at all is because of her position within the education system as the interim director, which, from my understanding, the board oversees her position. Correct?
That's right.
And afterwards, I know another member of your committee mentioned that there's a pyramid that is followed. So after her,
she oversees the principals. The principals oversee their staff, and so on and so forth.
So you wouldn't be able to say, oh, so and so in room 2B at Cattery School is not doing good on the hit list.
No.
No. Okay. I just want to make sure.
Absolutely not. All of the behaviors that we stipulated were in relation to events and things that took place after the probation of the director was ended.
Okay. Moving right along, I understand. I mean, we could spend hours on all
And
this stuff,
hours,
right? And I
and
just kind of want to keep going because it's, you know, it's not really going to get you guys anywhere, anyways. But the independent investigation. There's been a lot of talk about the independent investigation for months and months and months.
I wish it would just get done.
Since Donna was let go.
Yes.
Almost 12 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
Where are we at, and how come there's been no investigation at this point?
Well,
It's out of our hands. It's
Well, right now it's in council's hands, MCK's hands. It's actually one of the points that was put out in the MCED, and which was the constitutional review. And we do have names of people who are willing to be on that, and we're waiting to move forward on that. But because of all of the issues, we haven't been able to. The independent review was taken out of our hands months ago. And if you read the most latest interview in the other media, it says that they are now going to take it and get it done. We're hoping that they do. That has nothing to do with us. We want to make sure that we are completely unbiased.
So you were saying the independent review was never in the hands of the
Well,
combined school
the
committee,
independent investigation actually
Or investigation.
investigates the combined.
right?
So how could we have say in our own investigation on us?
Right.
It's
That would be a little
unethical.
crazy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So to say that, well, you're holding up the investigation is wrong. How could we hold it up when we have nothing to do with it? Of course, we're going to be reported to as it goes along, but that's about the
When the
only.
independent investigation starts, a good majority of your committee will need to be interviewed. Is everyone on board with this?
Yeah,
Everyone agreed to the process.
we've all agreed to it from the very beginning. Not once did we say, "Oh no, we refuse to have an independent review." We said we want this review because whatever the history is, as a committee, we still stand by it.
Okay.
We don't have anything to hide, so we're wanting it to be done. So whatever needs to happen, we'll support.
I know we're running out of time, and I could see my the camera guy giving me the wrap up, but there's just a few quick things I need to ask. So now at this point, I think a lot of people are asking, where do we go from here? If these issues can't get cleared up, is the combined school committee going to say, okay, it's null and void, we're going to do another election, will you do it? What position do you guys have at this point?
Well, I think we have to go by what the parents want. I think our next step would be to call a parents' meeting and ask what it is they want and how the parents feel, because we forget, we talk about the combined, we talk about the MCK. We have to remember that the education system is in the hands of the parents, and whatever the parents want is what we will do. Just like the independent review was asked for by the parents way back, and it still has not been done. So we need to, I think, ask what the parents want.
Okay. And also, I think it's interesting that there's been a lot of leaking of information from a different source, from many sources, if you will. And, you have to understand, as media, we can never say, well, this person said that, or, so I try to tread lightly because of also what's true and what's not true. It's the information's there. That doesn't mean that it's accurate. But it reflects poorly on the combined school committee. And how do you guys feel about that? And also that you're governing a system that somebody within that system may or may not have leaked very valuable information, and information that sometimes you cannot answer to because of confidentiality issues.
I think for me, the last year that I've been on this committee has been a constant struggle with that. And I guess personally, I have a hard time knowing that there may or may not be somebody who's leaking information, because it's unprofessional. And it doesn't get us anywhere. It just kind of holds us back. And then if you read the papers or whatever, saying that the combined school committee is under fire. Well, we're trying to move forward, and I think that's the part that people don't believe, because it's always much easier to believe the negative stuff and the drama and the sensationalism of everything. Let's make it sound like they're corrupt human beings. That couldn't be further from the truth. couldn't be further. And I guess it's frustrating for me as a member of this board, because it's not what I signed up for. I know for me, my interest is in my children's education.
Wayne?
Same thing. That's why I'm here, for my children's education. If there's somebody else out there that's willing to do it, that's going to do more or benefit the community better than I am, then hey, sure, go ahead and run. I don't have a problem with that.
Mine's with the children too. It's all for them. It's not, we're not on like this big, I don't know what you want to call it, but it's just for the children.
Okay. And lastly, before we end off, I need to know and to ask you guys, there has been a lot of speculation that the Combined School Committee is being led by the 207 Longhouse, and that is a very political statement. What do you have to say to that?
You know, I have to go back to when I first got on this committee, and I've shared with everybody on the committee. It's kind of like a running joke. When I went to my first AGA, which was last year in October, when I first got on the committee, I remember sitting there and watching what went on and thought, holy, what am I in for? And when the voting took place, you know, the person came and handed out pieces of paper. Everybody kind of signed their name, and we went on. And when I saw the people who were nominated, I jokingly to people next to me said, I don't think I'm Indian enough, you know, because although I'm Mohawk, I don't follow a traditional way of life. I don't go to the Longhouse. That's just not where I'm at. And so we joked about it. Afterwards, I told the committee members, because I thought, wow, you know what? There's not been one time when we've talked about this where it's become an issue, where things have gotten political, because that's not where we're at. The only mind that we have that's alike is in terms of education and working towards bettering the education. It's never come up. So that's why now we joke about it, because if I just want to look at who's on the committee, I can say, oh, it's got to be because they're all Longhouse. It's a non-issue,
Well,
and it always has been.
I've been to the 207 for, you know, on occasion, because I'm not traditional either, but I go. Do you guys attend? And this is an honest, you know, because we talk about discussing things honestly in this community, so let's get it done. I mean, do you feel that you're being led?
I've named all my children in there. I go occasionally, but like the past couple of years, I've been like not really active.
But are you being led by the 207
No.
Longhouse, or members? Do they, you know? Wayne?
No, I sit as a general seat, and I'm here for the general population of the community. The Longhouse of 207 has a representative that speaks for the Longhouse, and she does a great job. I don't know why it's such an issue or why it's a big problem for Longhouse people to be associated with boards and community issues. We are in Kahnawake, we're all Longhouse people, you know. I just, I don't understand why it's such a big issue.
And I think many people will say it's become too political. It's become too socially political, which means it's too political, and now it's social politics that seems to be leading this issue. And, you know, it seems to be very personal at this point. Would you agree with that or not?
I would have to agree with that, and that's one of the problems that I have with it, because I personally do not like politics. I'm not interested in politics, and I don't believe that the Combined School Committee should have anything to do with politics. But I think now that we've become involved with MCK, we don't really have a choice. There are political issues that we need to deal with on a daily basis, and quite honestly, I don't think it has any place in education. I do feel like we need to work together, and I feel like we have. There's only been one meeting I've been to where council has been there in the most recent past.
Okay. We're going to wrap this up. Is there anything else any of you feel is important to add at this point?
I would like to say if there is any meetings of any type about education, please, community members, come out and show an interest in your children's education. It's very important. It is. And then maybe it would make things better and make things go smoother if more people were involved and more people would actually see firsthand what's really going on. That's all I have to
Like
say.
hear it for yourself instead of like, you know, I can't.
Rather than getting stuck in the he said, she said, and oh my God, did you hear? Do you know what she said? And something this big turns into this big. And I think in Kahnawake, we're really good at doing that to each other.
Right.
You know, making things that are small turn into a huge issue because too many people have their hands in the same basket, basically.
Okay. Well, thank you all for coming today. I know this isn't an easy issue to discuss, but you did a great job. And if anyone from the community has any questions, where could you be reached, any of you? Or the Combined School Committee?
At the Education Center.
Through the Education Center,
Yep.
so 632-8770. And if you have any questions regarding the program, you can reach me at mohawktv@hotmail.com. Coming up, though, we're going to be sitting down with Chief Rhonda Kirby from the Mohawk Council of Kahnawake and doing a similar interview and trying to get the perspective from the Mohawk Council and what's going on in education over there, and hopefully gain some more insight on this issue. So don't go away. We're going to be right back with that interview after this. And welcome back to the program. You're watching part 2 of Our Town, and it's a special review of the issue going on here in Kahnawake with the education system. And as promised, we are now sitting with Chief Rhonda Kirby to get her perspective on from obviously the Mohawk Council of Kahnawake. And so we're going to sit down and speak with her regarding what's going on, bring us up to date, and why some of these issues have seemed to really have blown up in the last couple of weeks. So welcome to the interview, and how are you doing today?
Pretty good, pretty good.
Okay, so we're going to just jump right into it. I know that we've talked a little bit over the last couple of weeks, you know, regarding what's been going on in education, which is pretty normal between media and the portfolio chief. But then all of a sudden, this story comes out in one of the local media that really just kind of sheds a different light on things that may be going on in the background that the general public didn't know about. But first, let's start with what really happened was, you know, majority of the people in the community thought that the issue was now resolved. We're going to be looking at education system getting better, especially after the Mohawk Council came out and said, okay, this is the role. We have these 30 days to work in. This is going to be the mandate. It seemed all is well at this point. And then there's an election called at the annual General Assembly, which was later on protested, from what I understand, from some community members. So can we take it from there? We also spoke to the Combined School Committee to get their point of view. So I know you were present that night, and can you give us a quick overview of what happened?
Okay, just to go back a bit in regards to the MCED, the 30 days that is mentioned there is that we had up to 30 days to set the work plan, which included the AGA, also looking at community consultation for the Constitution review and the independent investigation. So there are differing opinions out there that after the 30-day period that MCK would vacate the field. And just again to reiterate, we had up to 30 days to set this whole plan out.
Right.
And we knew that the consultation could take quite some time. You know, making sure that we were in touch with as many community members as possible.
Right.
To do that. So that's with the MCED. When it came to the AGA, we worked quite a bit with the school committee in organizing the AGA. There had never actually been a reconfirmation at an AGA.
Right.
So that was where the whole procedures and processes came into play, and it was quite detailed. I guess for any election, you have to be prepared for all of that. So, there was a lot of advertising and that had to go out to inform parents about this AGA. We did agree to all of the processes, and contrary to both sides, I mean, we disagreed that, those were adhered to, and they weren't. So what had happened after the AGA, that we did have some complaints from community members in regards to who the people were that were counting the ballots and who was in the ballot room. There was an issue with a ballot that was placed by someone who really didn't have the
authority
the
to vote.
to vote.
Right.
So there was a couple of issues there.
We actually did discuss this, and this is one of the questions that I wanted to get your perspective on, was that there has been an admission on their part that yes, she wasn't allowed to vote, and we said who it was, because right now everybody at this point knows it's Jessica Deere, and that it was
human
a
error.
mistake, a human error.
And it was, and everyone agrees to it, but that's the problem. That's where a lot of problems in this world,
Right.
stem from, is human error.
But wasn't there an independent observer, which is Greg Horn? Wasn't he in there when this ballot was taken out, and that he overseen that nothing else went wrong, and that they did find the ballot, and then the process continued on?
Yeah.
So he has nothing to, he's a journalist in the community, so what was the problem afterwards?
Well, the issue was that the ballot was taken out. That was the major issue, and which was for the confirmation vote. And some people really don't see that there's a problem with it. I see it as a problem,
Why?
because the ballots were, how do we know what ballot was actually taken out and who it belonged to?
Well, wasn't it signed by Chris Leclerc?
Yeah, but all of the ballots that were for the outside schools had pink ballots. So all the ballots were laid out on the table. And
They
who's to
said,
say?
which one is yours?
So, and I'm not blaming anyone there. I'm not pointing fingers at anyone, but there was a mistake made. And what we tried to get across to the school committee was that, okay, it was human error, but let's do something about it. Considering all of the concerns that the community has had this past year, I thought it would have been helpful on their part to show the community that, okay, there was a human error, let's fix it.
Right.
The outcome of another vote may be the same, but let's show the community that you're trying to be transparent. So I think by Friday afternoon, 2 days after the vote, I tried to get in touch with Tina to say that I think we need to get together, because
Tina
McCumber, who is the new chairperson of the school committee, to say that we do need to get together. There are some issues that I think we need to discuss. Following that email and subsequent emails, I think the majority of them felt that the AGA had happened, let's move on. And for me, and I think I'm speaking on behalf of those who actually put in their letters of complaint, that's a big concern. So we did have we did have a meeting actually on November 14th to discuss the whole AGA and what had happened, and it really didn't run as smoothly as we had hoped. There was a lot of issues that happened, and I was not comfortable with it. And it was obvious that were parents who were not comfortable.
What were the major concerns, besides the ballot? What were some of the other concerns that parents addressed?
I guess some parents felt that it was being run by Mohawk Council. Christine and I were sitting at the table.
Okay.
We did have some little technical difficulties, and we were trying to get the terms of reference up on the screen to show parents what exactly would be entailed for the independent investigation. So in the meantime, parents were questioning why we were even talking, that they didn't want to hear from MCK, they wanted to hear from their school rep. So, that was a difficulty, but of course it depends what side of the room you're sitting on, and at that point some of the KCSC members did sit up at the front, and but by then I think we had lost focus of what the meeting was all about. Parents were visibly upset with the new nominations, and a lot of parents didn't stay to be a part of the second vote. And so when the second
Because there
vote,
was two processes that had taken
It
place
was-
that night.
yeah.
First was the
the
process
the
of
reconfirmation.
Okay.
So at the other schools, at Cattery and Gorininuha and Survival School, all the parents that were originally on their in-school committees were reconfirmed, and that was part of the MCED that would be part of the process.
Right.
So the only venue for the general seats to be reconfirmed would be at the AGA, which is normally held. It's supposed to be held in October, but because of the budgets, I guess, they felt it was better to hold it in the fall. So it was within our time frame.
Right.
So the two of the seats were reconfirmed, and then the general public was asked if they wanted to nominate someone else. So there were 2 more nominations. So at that point, there were 4 people who were on the ballot, and you had to choose 2. So
Okay.
one of the people who was in the counting room was felt to be
In the conflict of interest?
in a conflict.
Okay.
So she was asked to remove herself, and at that time I was informed by Trina DeLille, who was the then chairperson of the school committee, to say that she chose someone else.
Okay.
I wasn't asked, I was told,
Okay.
and only to find out the next day that there were two totally different people that were in the room, and another member of the combined school committee was in the same room. So that was a problem for a lot of people. And so, that's what happened. It took us, there was a couple of emails between Tina and I to discuss what was happening. We did have that meeting, a very lengthy meeting on November 14th to discuss the whole AGA and what had happened and the concerns.
And so even though you were there, there was, and just to clarify that, even though you were there, your involvement in this process was quite limited, it seems.
No.
Like in terms of like knowing who was in the ballot room, who was doing
Well,
the counting
all
over
of
here.
that was agreed to
Beforehand, okay.
beforehand.
But you weren't running around making sure that everything
No.
was running
No.
smoothly.
Because it did look, I could see the expressions on people's faces, that because I'm facing the crowd, and
Okay.
I could tell that people were wondering, like, what is going on? There was a
Okay.
lot of movement at the front table, and people were coming up to the table to ask questions. People were leaving.
I
so
think both sides can agree at this point, though, that there were some issues
Oh, of
and there was
course.
some
Of
confusion.
course,
because
you
I
know-
got that from the combined also.
yeah, and it's been in our statement, and I wasn't blaming. I haven't blamed anyone. I took responsibility for that meeting. I was part of it. Like I said, we had done days of planning,
Right.
and I think midway through that evening, I realized that we really should have had an electoral officer, because things were just things we didn't anticipate, things that we did anticipate happened.
We're going to take a quick commercial break, but on that note, I just wanted to say that I know that this was the first time that there had ever really been any issues at the Annual General Assembly. But I think in light of some of the issues that had happened in the last year, maybe you're right, it did need to be run in a different manner at this point, and I think a lot of people feel that way. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that when we get back, so just don't go away. We're going to be right back after this quick break. And welcome back to the program. You're watching Our Town, and we're doing a special edition right now on the Kahnawake education system, where we've talked to both the Combined School Committee, and now part 2 of the program this week is with Chief Rhonda Kirby, who is also a portfolio chief here at the Mohawk Council of Kahnawake and who has been heavily involved with education for most of her career. So before we left for the break, we were talking about the election and how it was run. And I know historically the AGAs were pretty loose and I'm not saying there were procedures, but I know that previously things were done by sticky tab and here's your vote, and you know what I mean? Because it wasn't taken so seriously, and that's how the parents respected that it was ran. But this year it was, once it seemed that the Mohawk Council got involved, it seemed like, and there was this tumultuous situation the last 8-9 months, that the election became something else. Would you agree to that?
For sure. And I think if you look back over this past year at some of the issues that have been addressed, are common knowledge to everybody in the community, concerns from parents, from staff, teachers. I think, a lot of people were not comfortable being in an open forum. And I think in past AGAs, people put their hand up. And it was a vote, and does anybody object? No one objects. The person is in. And I think over the past year, it was quite clear that people do not want to have or be part of that sort of an election.
Okay.
We did talk about it with the school committee, and we did. We all agreed that was important to do, and for people to feel, that there wasn't any intimidation in the general meeting. So it was agreed that that's what we do. The colored ballots would just be to determine, to make sure that if there were 40 parents at Cattery School, there were 40 green ballots. If there was 25 from Survival School, there was 25 pink ballots, and that's how it went. Just to make sure that the whole process was on the up and up.
Okay.
So that's really the whole basis of that.
Okay. Now I understand there's an issue here within some of the complaints that had come to Mohawk Council and the Combined School Committee about the election that night, and that some parents were not allowed to vote in the election, which led to some complaints being lodged to Human Rights. Could you elaborate a little bit?
Well, part of that too is within the Constitution, and we know that it was done in the early 80s, and it's apparently was somewhat updated in 2005, and not necessarily, I don't think it was ratified, but apparently there's 3 years of minutes that no one can find. So we've gone back to using the 1996 version. Within that, I think everyone would agree that our community schools have certainly grown, and what is in the Constitution also needs to grow with the school. So there's a lot of things that are not really relevant at this point, and I know that some people will say, well, that's how we've done it, and we've always done it like that. Well, then why have a Constitution? So those are things that really need to be looked at, and it's important. I think if you're going to follow something, if you're going to follow the Constitution, it needs to be followed. You can't change it for your benefit.
But in the circumstances of some of these parents not being able to vote, from what I understand, was that it really was about a membership issue, that at the end of the day, their children, although enrolled here in Kahnawake, they didn't fall onto the town registry, Kahnawaga's registry, and then they weren't funded through the education center, which they didn't make their nominal rolls list.
So those children are funded through AVATAC, which is ultimately where everyone's funded by Indian Affairs.
Right.
So that's the issue. Unfortunately, those parents were not allowed to vote, but they were, which didn't make sense, but they were allowed to be on the school committee.
As a parent.
So so it doesn't make sense, and that's where the Constitution needs to change. Those
but
parents.
Whose membership applies? Isn't it the Mohawk Council of Kahnawake is the membership law of the land, not necessarily the education center?
Well, the education center, people are verified through the membership office. So those parents have gone to Human Rights, and I think it's something that, I try to convey to the school committee that it's a serious offense or a serious issue that needs to be looked at. Not only, and if it's accepted by the Human Rights, not only will the school committee be investigated, but we will also. It's something that needs, and I stressed again at the meeting of the 14th that, we need to look seriously at some of the issues that we're going to be facing.
So are you saying then that those parents should have been able to vote in that election?
I think so, because it doesn't say it specifically in the Constitution. Everyone can have their own interpretation, and that's why we ran into problems. So until all of that is changed, it's difficult to say that we're going to use the Constitution, the 1996 version. So
in the Constitution, does it say to apply Kahnawaga's membership law or not?
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't say to apply the membership law.
No. I'm pretty
because
sure.
that's an important, because they did make, the combined school committee did say they're following Ganawage's membership law, and what
Mhm.
other membership law would supersede the Constitution.
Yeah, and
Doesn't
like I
make
said, it
sense
was
to me
written in
either.
the 80s, so I'm sure it doesn't make reference to the membership law as it is today.
Okay, so we're going to leave that there for now. We're going to come back. We're going to go to a quick commercial break. Don't go away. You're watching Our Town. Stay tuned. And welcome back to the program. So we're just going to jump right back into it. So Rhonda, before we left, we talked a little bit about some of the processes and things that were going on. And now, you know, clearly you start to see a little bit of a breakdown in the relationship. And it's already been a tumultuous relationship, right, from protests and things like that. So here, a lot of people would like to see things move forward. But we are not always privileged to confidential information. The general public, and also we don't work in these day-to-day things, which is what you've been experiencing in that relationship, and some of the things that you said publicly about the breakdown of that relationship have pretty well shocked a lot of people to know that there is a series of emails and correspondence going back between the combined school committee and yourself and the Mohawk Council of Ganawage that have gotten you know, at some people would say that it was unprofessional and on both sides. What do you have to say to that?
Well, of course, I'll stand by the emails that I sent. I really don't think I was unprofessional. I think I was being very professional and trying to stay on track at what we were supposed to be doing. Yes, there was a breakdown after the meeting of the 14th. I did tell the school committee that I couldn't go to council with what they wanted. Actually, they had wanted to put out a joint statement to say that the AGA had happened and we're going to move on, and I couldn't agree with that because of the letters that I had seen, the letters of complaint. And so I called. I wasn't going to be at the meeting on the 15th, so I did call the Grand Chief in the morning to let him know my perspective of the meeting that night, and this is what happened. I also told the school committee to write their own briefing note and ask to meet with council because I really wanted everyone to hear why they felt it wasn't necessary to have a new election. And also Bobby Patton, we were both in attendance that night, and he did give his version too. And that's what it was based on, to call the election null and void. You know, since then, we've had several emails that have gone back and forth, and because I answered the emails, I mean, I am the education portfolio chief.
When it was addressed to the Grand Chief,
Yeah,
you had
yeah.
responded back.
But,
Okay.
you know,
and that was an issue for somebody.
you know, and I was, you know, they wanted to know when I became the Grand Chief. But, you know.
Why did you respond back and
because
not Mike DeLille?
it was, I'm the portfolio chief. I mean, I think we all have our own responsibilities here, and we don't need, you know, the Grand Chief to help us along with each one of our files.
But they say that he was heavily involved in the correspondence and in corresponding with them up until that point. So what happened?
I would disagree.
Okay.
Everything went through me. He was CC'd on everything,
Okay.
certainly, but he wasn't part of the correspondence.
Okay.
After that, and I guess it's, you know, to everyone's interpretation. There was a point where I just thought, you know what, I can't do this anymore. There was an email that was misinterpreted by someone on the school committee, and I guess felt that their frustrations needed to be heard, and referred to parents, you know, that she was tired of sick, malicious people who were preying on our children's education. And that really bothered me, to the point that I thought, I can't do this anymore. This is not a healthy relationship. And I honestly felt that if I continued with this, and we did have another breakdown in a couple of months, that, you know, it would be seen that I would be protecting them. And I'm not. I'm not going to be doing that. And I could easily be seen as someone who was harboring these individuals. It truly has been difficult, and I think even with the previous portfolio chiefs would agree, and I think everybody who's been following this story would agree that it has been a very tumultuous relationship, and you know, and I don't think it's for the power. I mean, you know, we certainly have our own positions here of other files that we have to work on, but there are important issues from parents out there, concerns, and you know, we're responsible for them too. And if it means, you know, for us speaking out for them, then that's what it is.
Right. You know, I understand your concerns about the emails. I mean, you know, I've been privy to some of those and looked at them too and thought, you know, I think both sides are not communicating well. The combined school committee would say, well, you know, Rhonda's difficult to work with. She's a bully. She's very condescending when she works with us. And I asked them the same questions yesterday. I said, well, some of your responses are really unprofessional to her too. I said, so then maybe everyone needs to get into a room and look at a different strategy. Do you think that even after reading all this and all this coming out to the public, do you think it was in the best interest of the process to make everything so public?
Well, I think what it stems from is that the Eastern Door had gone to a meeting on the Monday night and was refused. So that sort of, I think, sparked more interest. And Timmy called and he wanted to know if I would make any comments. And I asked him, you know, the same thing that I asked you, what's your angle? And he said, well, we haven't heard anything for over 2 weeks about the election, you know, after the elections have been called null and void. And I said, okay, I'll tell you. And this is what happened. Yes, there was certainly a breakdown in communication. You know, I think everybody's being quite defensive at this point. But there's still the bigger issue of, you know, education and where it's going. You know, and there are things coming down from the federal government that will be affecting all of us. So, you know, we need to put those personal feelings aside and continue to work, because I think we both need each other.
Where do you see, I mean, because, you know, obviously you're very passionate about education. For the last, how many years you've been on council, it's always been one of your portfolios, you know, and you followed through on a lot of those things, and I think that should stand for something. How do you come back from all of this, and how do you see both sides moving forward, and can you and do you want to?
Well, I think we have to. You know, it's not a matter of can we or do we want to. I think we need to. Yes, and both sides have to be able to sit down and openly talk about what some of the issues are. So, I mean, they are insulting, and I think that's part of the reason that I had to go public, because I couldn't be part of that anymore. It makes it more difficult to go back to a meeting when you're reading some of the things that have been said, you know, and being accused of being unprofessional and micromanaging, and you know, I
did see that. Yeah.
It is difficult. So, what was I supposed to do?
Do you feel that you've stepped into a pretty hard role, because you've been on for only a couple of months, versus there was another chief who had held this portfolio prior to the election? So do you think that there's some history there and some unresolved issues that you've kind of stepped into just being a chief in the Council of Ganawagi?
I think so. I think there's certainly unresolved issues there, and I think you know, for a large or a group of people out there, that no matter what MCK is involved in, you know, it's they're not happy with it.
We're going to take a quick commercial break. We're going to wrap this up with a few more things, and don't go away, because we're going to be right back after this quick break. And welcome back to the program. We're just about getting ready to wrap up here, so we're just going to end off with a few questions that are open-ended that I know community members have been talking about. The independent investigation that is supposed to have happened, who is responsible for that? The Combined School Committee says it's not us, it's the Mohawk Council of Ganawagi. So where does it stand?
We are responsible, and at the AGA we had asked for people who might be interested to sit on an ad hoc committee And that's something, a request from the school committee. They wanted to make sure that the terms of reference from the June 18th meeting were used for the basis of any investigation. So we are looking into hiring a firm to do the investigation. It will be funded by the MCK, and we will be letting the community know.
Okay.
As
And-
soon as we hire
Okay.
a firm, and there will be a time frame for them to follow, and that all of that will be in the press release.
Mhm. And the independent investigation is to do what?
Look at the processes that were used in the termination of Donna Lahash.
Okay. And that's it? Or is it going to investigate just that one scenario, or is it looking at the education system and the way that it works?
Well, it's
Two different things?
two different things, but
Okay.
it's basically what the process was used
Okay.
to let her go.
How come it's taken so long?
Because part of our co-management, we would be working on that together. And like I said, after the AGA, things have seriously broken down since then. But
Mm-hmm.
we are in the process again. Like I said, that we were looking for a firm
Okay.
that
So
we will be hiring.
what do you think in the next couple of weeks? Maybe only in the new year? 'Cause
Well,
it's
it
the holiday
depends. Yeah,
season.
yeah. So we were originally looking at a 30-day time frame for
Okay.
the investigation to be done.
As long as it gets done at this point, right? I
Well,
think
you
people
know,
will be
once
satisfied.
right after the holidays, it'll be a year that
Mhm.
Donna was dismissed.
Mhm.
So we had hoped, like I said, because of the way the AGA ran,
Mhm.
you know, it was really, we lost focus of the whole agenda.
So now what happens with the Mohawk Council saying that the election is null and void, but the combined school committee is saying, no, we're going to continue on as usual? Where is there obviously...
Well, that will be determined
Okay. By...
by what we decide to do next.
Okay. Mohawk Council and combined school committee, do you see yourselves meeting on this, or are you going to be looking at making another decision just from the political body?
I don't know really, you know, what the outcome will be at this point. You know.
Wait and see? Okay, we'll leave it at that for now. I know that in the past there's been some issues between the Mohawk Council and the Longhouse in this issue. And I know, you said you weren't really comfortable. And I really don't want to talk about it either. The only thing that I want to say is that there has been reference made to, it has become almost like MCK versus Longhouse. And why is that? Is that like because of the people, or was it the Mohawk Council that felt that way? I know that this has been an overwhelming feeling.
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess it could be perceived as those who have been more vocal about the issue.
Our known traditional people in the
Mhm.
community,
Yeah.
everybody would
And I guess,
agree
you
to
know,
that.
and that's part of the problem. And I think everyone would agree that there are community members who don't want to speak out and to be singled out by anyone as speaking out against a particular group. So that's been, and you know, that we had anticipated, or we had hoped anyway, certainly that there would at least be 500 people at the AGA. We have almost 1,000 students enrolled through the education center, and just over 300 who go to outside schools. So if, depending, I mean, we had hoped there was at least 500 people. So, you know, we have to look at, you know, where everyone is at, and are people really interested, or are they really intimidated by some of the issues that have gone on this past year?
Right. You know, because some people will say, well, politics has no business in education, and you can definitely see how it does bleed over into
and
the
for
community
sure, and
and
this,
social
yeah,
politics.
for sure, you know, it certainly turned into more of a political issue at this point than an education issue.
You know, I know there's been lawyers involved on both sides at this point. There's been a breakdown of communication. I think a lot of parents are concerned that where is our education system heading at this point. the combined school committee will say, just let us do our job, take a step back, everything is going to be fine, let us move forward. What is Mohawk Council's position at this point?
Well, I think, and they've said it all along, that they have a job to do. I would like to know what their plans are. What are they doing? It's something that has been said several times over this past year, and we have yet to see what they're working on, what their plans are. I really don't know. We had hoped to go to several meetings, and I've been told by the current chairperson that I will not be invited to any meetings, only to certain meetings. And I think the reason for attending some of those meetings was just to make sure that the staff and parents, that there's a level of comfort that MCK is still there, regardless of what some people think. We are part of this co-management.
Right.
And it was really to ensure the level of comfort because of the issues that have gone on this past year with staff and people being on a hit list.
And is it fair, or do you feel it's unfair for the combined to say, well, it's only a few people in the community, it's only a few concerned parents, it's only a few concerned people that are coming to Mohawk Council? Would you say that was inaccurate?
So does that mean that they are not given that opportunity to voice their concerns, even if there's a few? What does that mean?
Right. No, you make a good point. I think everybody's voice in the community needs to be heard, and whoever they feel comfortable going to is where they feel comfortable going to. And I know that as a community member and as a journalist. So, finally, I know that there was a motion in 2 weeks ago stemming from this whole issue with emails and things like that regarding Chief Carl Horn, that you had said that you would be presenting a vote of non-confidence to the table because he had said in emails that the council was acting childish, and there were some comments that you felt that were inappropriate relating to education. Where does that stand at this point?
Well, the comments that he made in the email, he had said that he wasn't at the meeting, and it was childish and on our part to even say that. But he was there. We did discuss it at the council meeting on that day, and there were 10 people in attendance who said he was at the meeting. So that was the discrepancy. He accused us of being unresponsible or in our job, as community leaders. But the fact is that he was at the meeting. And for him to send an email to the school committee to say he wasn't there was a lie. And, which in turn made the chairperson write back to say it's evident that Rhonda doesn't know what she's talking about. So that, it caused a lot of problems in the communication.
Okay. So where does that stand now? Do you still feel the same way, or are you just trying to move past it at this point?
Well, you'll, like everyone else, wait and see.
Okay. So no vote of non-confidence at this point?
Not at this point.
Okay. So Rhonda, I want to thank you for coming on and being open and sincere on things. Is there anything else you feel is important to add at this point?
Well, I just want to assure the community that we are continuing to work on this issue, and hopefully we can have some things resolved by the new year.
Okay. Well, Rhonda, thank you for coming on. It was an interesting interview.
Thanks.
And of course, thank you to the public for watching. And if you have any questions regarding this portion of the interview, you can always reach Rhonda here at the Mohawk Council of Kahnawake. If you have any comments regarding the interview, don't hesitate to give us a call at 450-632-6397 and leave some messages on our hotline. Or you can always send us a message at mohawktv@hotmail.com. But until then, thanks for watching, and Onagi Wahi.
kanya ke haga thadi adarasta kayerniga yadu zawaderoru.